I am literally obsessed with you.
Okay, I'll take it.
And welcome to the Amy Ish Show.
Thank you.
Alana Stott, MBE, which I had to write this down because I wasn't going to remember it. So member of the Order of the British Empire.
I can't remember it either.
So for those of you that don't know, that is a very high order that is bestowed upon Miss Alana here because she earned it through helping vulnerable women and your efforts around mental health. And that's really amazing. That's literally the premise of my show is just like mental health, helping other people out. But obviously, being a woman, coming from the military, my upbringing, the whole 9 yards, we have such a crazy similarity in our paths and like some of the traumas and things that we've been through. So the fact that you have overcome all of these crazy things in your life, like you have one of the most wild stories. For those of you that don't know who Alana is, you need to run and get this book, She Who Dares, Alana Stott. It just was launched last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a new book. She's also got, if you're going to go down rabbit holes and want all of her information, but How to Ask for Money is her other book here. She is just an incredible expert on fundraising, charitable initiatives, connecting people together, running businesses, literally like from concept to fruition. I mean, she's amazing. So go check her out. She's got her own podcast show. Your guys' podcast is called what now? It's like
Behind the Scene.
Behind the Scene.
SWN.
And then she's been a nutritionist on so many initiatives. You helped your husband achieve 2 Guinness World Records. She's the nutritionist behind the new show that's now out, Toughest Forces on Earth, where there's 3 incredible former military service members that go all around the world and test out different trainings for different military forces all over the world. She's incredible. Go check her out. Run, and I'm going to hyperlink everything below on this episode so you can go find her. But starting at the beginning of your journey, I was reading your book, and when I tell you I was in tears, I was laying in bed by myself reading your book, and I was just sobbing because it's so rare to find. I've never found anyone that has had almost the same journey as me. So I don't know if you knew this about me or not, but I was born in England. I'm from Nottingham. My parents divorced when I was like 3 months old. So I've always had like a split household. When I was really young, my mom moved to the United States. I think I was like 5 or 6 at the time. She moved to the United States. I originally came with her because she met an American, married him. But then I was going back and forth my whole life. And I was kind of, to be honest, on my own most of my time. I left home, I think I was like 14 or something. I have not lived with my parents since I was like 14 years old. And you share some things in your book that are just so mind-blowing that no child should ever have to go through. You lost your mom at a really young age. You grew up in an environment where it seemed like, from your book, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but it seemed like you had like a really decent family, but you were just kind of isolated, and that you were spending so much time like on your own, and you had to be the mom.
Yeah.
You know, you raised your brother. What's your brother's name, by the way?
So my younger one's Adam, older's Thomas.
Adam and Thomas. Okay, so Adam is the one that you spent so much time raising, and you were young. I think you were like 13 or something when he was born.
I was
or 9.
He was 9 or 10. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, probably like 9. Yeah, just after I was burnt. So, he was born. So mum and dad had got divorced when I was younger, and then mum had met another guy. And I always look back on it now and think about, I'm older than my mum was when she died. So she was always just a young person just trying to find. And she was the type of woman that needed a man in her life. So she met another guy quite soon after my dad, and he was a lot younger, I think like 13 years younger than her. So when Adam was born, it was just a complete shock to their system. This baby, mum, it's 10 years since she'd had a baby, and he definitely didn't. I'm not saying he didn't want a baby, but a baby is a big thing. And he worked in a bar, so he didn't get that much sleep anyway, and they were busy. So immediately Adam was put into my bedroom so that they could get more sleep. So my nights would be like getting up and doing night feeds and various different things. And I was still pretty young myself and then recovering from the burns and whatnot. So it wasn't, I guess, until I fell asleep in class one day and one of the teachers complained to my mom or pulled my mom in and said, look, she needs to be getting more rest, that I think it was even recognized that that's what I'd done. But my dad would always complain about it too. So my mom and dad were always at loggerheads over something. You know, when I was burnt, my mom and her boyfriend were in the house, so my dad blamed them. Nobody was to blame. It was an accident. And then I'm kind of raising Adam, and my dad would kick off about it. And my dad had a girlfriend as well, so I was always looking after Adam or looking after my mom, and then my dad would get angry that I would have Adam, so that his girlfriend wouldn't allow Adam to come round. So sometimes there'd be days where I would have Adam, but I'd want to see my dad, but I couldn't bring him round. So it was just constantly battling all their issues, and there was never really...
You're just in the middle. You're like a ping pong ball.
Yeah. But I had a great Auntie Molly. Like, she was my grandfather's older sister. So every now and then I would stay at her house, and those were the times that I was made to feel like a child, I guess. You know, she would make me tea and digestives, and like I slept, and I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have work to do there. I didn't have responsibilities. It was just looked after. So I did have that one person in my life that made me feel like a kid, I guess.
Oh, I love that for you. That you had that like outlet and that source of just comfort in what otherwise seemed to be just like a journey of survival for you. When you were really young, I think you were 8 or 9, if I'm not mistaken, you got severely burned from making hot tea.
Yeah, it was one of those kind of old-fashioned Scottish urns. They're like big stainless steel things. And I was making the tea, and I stood on, my grandfather had made like a stool, and the breakfast bar was a bit high for me. So I stood on the stool with the tea jug. And then when I moved across the stool, it just fell over and it all came down on top of me. So, my mom like rushed me to hospital straight away. They put me in like wraps and various things. And I was put into like an incubation chamber for a while. A day after I got to hospital, though, I started being sick and I was getting really ill. And then they done a quick check and I had appendicitis. So they rushed me down to surgery, and on the way to surgery, my appendix burst. So as a bit of a silver lining, if I hadn't been in hospital, like, I might not be here now.
But I'm just like, I read that in the book, and as I was reading that, I'm like, what are the chances that you get burned, you have appendicitis at the same time? It's almost like, was that like you being burned, was that a trauma moment for your body where it was like, okay, now your appendix is, going to have issues? I don't know, but that was wild, like divine intervention almost.
Yeah. So then I ended up, I think, about 6 months in hospital. I met, like, there was a girl who was there pretty much the whole time who was in a coma. So I would read to her, like, after a while when I was out of the unit and I was into the ward, it was pretty boring. So I would help the nurses change beds and do all that kind of thing. So it was actually although it was an awful time, it was an experience for me. And that's when I was, I guess, mingling with older people. Like my teacher would bring schoolwork into the hospital. So, and when you're doing schoolwork in hospital, you kind of go way ahead of what they're doing in the classroom. So by the time I got back to school, I was kind of ahead class-wise of everybody, but then everybody had formed pretty solid friendships. So I didn't really have that friendship group. But again, then Adam was born not long later, and then I'm into that mum mode straight away. So
wow. Well, there's some things in the book that just like really stand out to me, and this is definitely jumping ahead, and I feel like I'm not doing you or the audience justice in sharing way more about your journey, but please go buy her book and read it, because when you read it, not only are you going to relate to so many things in it, just being a woman and going through life and experiencing, growing up and all the challenges you face, doing that. But I want to jump into a couple of things that I think are just so needed to be talked about in today's society. And you're such a powerhouse around supporting initiatives that help women, but I mean, women and men in terms of mental health as well. And there's a couple things that really stood out to me. And you had this terrible experience when you were, I think you were a teenager, and you had a boyfriend at the time that violated you in ways that are just so appalling for any person who is supposed to love you and be in an intimate relationship with you, et cetera. You went to a party, he drugged you, and some things happened. And I'll leave it to you to decide if you want to share outside of the book, but this particular line, I highlighted it in the book because it was so, I broke down when I read this because it's so true for my own journey with sexual trauma. When you look at just the injustices in our society and in our systems about holding people accountable for their actions when they, treat women a certain way, and men also go through these exact same traumas. But during the sentencing process, you're in the courtroom and the paragraph here is, a sentence of 12 months was given to my first perpetrator and 18 months to his friend. And I'm skipping ahead a little bit here because I want to get to this moment where you say, this was where I learned that telling lies about cash is classed as a worse crime than abusing a woman's body. The laws written by men valued cash over women. And it's so true. It's still the case to this very day. So tell me a little bit about this for you, and was this the catalyst for why you're so involved with women's issues today?
Yeah. So I was living down. What had happened was my mum had died and my little brother's dad had come back to his life, and then he'd moved down to England. We were in Scotland, and they took Adam away, and I'd raised him. He was 6 years old now. So I left school and left home and moved down to England to be there. So I was 16, I was living in this new country effectively. And, you were meeting older people. I was working in bars. I was hanging out with much older groups of people. And this guy that I was dating, he was 27. I was with that group of people. And yeah, one evening it was never confirmed to me exactly what he done to make me pass out, but I passed out and him and his friend, I guess, had their pleasure there. I didn't know what had happened. I woke up. I knew something had happened, but I didn't know what or who. And this was a party, so there was a lot of people in the house. So I'm asking people, like, who was in the room, what happened, and everybody was just completely denying it. Another one of my friends had come and she said, we're going to the police, something's happened to you. The police then took everybody and interviewed them, and the two of them admitted it immediately. And the two were saying, one said, well, she's my girlfriend, so it's okay. And his friend said, well, he said it was okay and it's his girlfriend, so that's okay. Next day, they retracted that statement, then denied it, and then it went through, the usual rigmarole. And during that process, I learned what it was to be a victim of sexual assault, and that was just a lot of questioning, a lot of doubt, a lot of, because it's a he said, she said thing, even though I hadn't actually said anything, they were the ones that admitted it. And you just learn that they're going to go after you. Very rarely did they criticize them. Like, very rarely did I hear a criticism about them. But every little thing I done was checked. And this was before phones and social media or anything like that. And people would record me and try and get me to say things. And as soon as it got to the courtroom, it was a case of, I'm just telling my truth. I'm telling what I remember about that night and what happened. And then their story had changed about a gazillion times up to this point. They waited till the court day, and then one of them pled guilty immediately, which then got him a lesser sentence when he pled guilty. The other one carried on through and was eventually found guilty. But as a 17-year-old, by this point, I'm now learning exactly what it is to be a victim of a sexual assault. And on the stand, it was just like attack after attack after attack. Nothing about that night. You done this, you wore this, you acted like this, you behaved like this previously. And I'm still a kid. I was still a kid, but all I was doing was just answering the questions. And I always remember after the case coming out, and they had a female barrister who was cross-examining me or whatever it's called on the stand. And when we were outside the court, Carlisle Court, she came out, and I remember she looked at me, and I remember it was a look of, I'm sorry, like, it's my job, that kind of look. She wasn't happy what she'd done, but I was like, you're a woman and you've just done this to another very young woman. And And I spoke to the victim support team, and they were like, everything you've been through is just normal. That's what happens. That's what does. I remember I'd been in the bar next to the court, and there was one of the jurors there. He hadn't recognized who I was, and he was talking about it in the worst possible way. And I immediately just said, I'm going to stop this happening to other people. Like, not just the sexual assault side of it, which is still, I want to stop that happening, but everything else that goes along with it, and how a woman's made to feel. And yeah, from 17 to probably 10 years, I hated myself. I hated everything about myself. And anybody who's been through sexual trauma knows that that's just natural. You're the shame, the guilt, the disgust, all these things. And then they're handled in a million different ways. Like, the worst thing I ever hear is there's a one-stop shop for victim. A victim can be, complete recluse to a complete out there. They can go to one sex to the other. They can there's a million different things that there's no one-stop shop on how to be a survivor or anything like that. So it took me quite a while to actually talk about it fully. But the catalyst for me talking about it was seeing someone else that I knew of going through accusations and horrible things that were being said about them because of something that they'd been through. And yeah, when they went to prison, a famous author had basically not declared the right amount of money on his tax return. It was basically the gist of it. And he went to jail for 4 years for that. And what they done to me was 18 months and 12 months, whatever it was there. So the idea that laws are written by men always comes back to me, is that it was never in favor of the female. It was never in favor of us as women. They don't understand what a woman goes through when they're violated, And yeah, of course, like, it happens to men, it happens to boys. Like, it's not something that I don't fight for. I would fight for protection of children as well. But as a female, I know that violation. And I now have a 12-year-old child. I've got a girl who's absolutely stunningly beautiful, and I know what she's going to face in the world. And my only way to deal with that is to arm her with as much information and knowledge and protection in her own self, to have that strength of, no, you don't need to feel shame, you don't need to feel guilt. Like, what you wear, what you want, you do what you want, you behave how you want, as long as you treat people respectfully and be kind. There's no limits to what a woman should be allowed to do.
I when I was over in Afghanistan, one of the lesser incidences that happened to me that really connected me to your particular story and that statement about, that the laws are designed more in favor of, men having, the cash issue, as you brought up, was more of an issue than a woman's body being violated. But I had just a really mild story where I had pictures of myself on my laptop. Naked photos, bodybuilding photos, whatever. I was training at the time. I was married at the time. I was over in Afghanistan for a really long time. And so we were corresponding, my ex and I were corresponding by email, and I had photos of myself. And there was a S6 shop, which is, S6 is like the U.S. military's IT shop. They had 2 service members that had ordered a private satellite so you could get internet to your room. And they would charge us like, hey, if you want internet service at your little hooch, pay $100 and we'll give you monthly internet service. So I did that so I could Skype with my family and stuff like that. But they needed the IP address off my laptop. And so I took my laptop by. I didn't know how to grab the IP address off at the time. I was like, I'm going to come grab this after work. No problem. Picked my laptop back up, got internet to my room. Fast forward a few weeks, this staff sergeant that I was deployed with, male, came up to me and he said, hey, I don't know how to even ask you this, but have you given your photos to anybody? And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? And I had noticed everyone was looking at me weird. And long story short, the S6 shop, the 2 guys in the S6 shop took all my photos and they put them on a CD. And they were selling CDs of my naked photos. And this was long before OnlyFans was cool and, social media. This was like, in the day and age where like I don't even think we had Instagram at the time. Mm-hmm. And so anybody having my photos, period, was a big deal. But like it was career ending for me to have my naked photos out there among these guys where I'm already a minority being a woman in the military. I'm already told every day I should be in the kitchen and shouldn't be in the military and like chastised and things like that. But now to have like every single person there has seen me naked, my most intimate, experience, they have now sold that and valued it at $100 a CD. When I reported that, the military looked at me and said, if you push this issue, you're going to get the Article 15. And for those of you that don't know what an Article 15 is, it's a court martial, like it's a corrective action. It's a negative mark on your career to have that. So they tried to silence me, and they were effective for a long time, where they made me feel like I had done something wrong. And really, that was just to save the leadership's bacon of having any type of issues. It was I was the problem. I was in trouble. Always. It was me that was doing the wrongdoing. And so those guys, which by the way, one of them was a sergeant major's son that we were deployed with, they got off scot-free and never got held accountable for that.
And it's interesting how you started that story, because you started it by saying one of the lesser incidents that happened, one of the milder incidents that happens. And I always say, like, I've been said, oh, you were raped, were you beat up, were you dragged into a bush? No, I wasn't. But a violation's a violation. Like, it doesn't matter. Even as, you're correcting it to yourself. You know that wasn't mild. You know it wasn't. You know it was career ending. You know you probably had thoughts that were not great afterwards. And images being shared, although it's classed as that lesser or milder instance. I have a very good friend whose daughter had images she'd shared. They got shared through everywhere. Devastated her life. Like, it wasn't. She didn't know that. Very similar to you, they were taken and. And when they went to the police, it was a case of, well, if you've shared that picture at any point, then you've broke the law because it's child pornography. And the person who's receiving it would be in trouble. But if we go for them, we have to go for you too. So as a 14-year-old girl, you've shared these pictures. You're the one who's broken the law, and then you could be in trouble. That girl then took to trying to commit suicide, and she was then later sexually assaulted. And that, to me, is not a coincidence that when you've been violated once, it can happen so much easier, because the shame and the negativity that you feel a predator can spot that a mile away. So that's why these things can happen. So to call it mild or lesser, it's actually doing yourself an injustice, because it wasn't mild or less, and it should have been treated like that, but it's not being treated like that. My daughter was asked for nude pictures recently. Obviously she said no, and I say obviously only because I know that I hope that I've taught her enough that she wouldn't. But when I contacted the parent of the boy who'd asked her, I found his details. I knew his first name, found it, you know what job I do, so I found his details. And the first question the mum said was, where did you get my number? And I was like, is that really what you're thinking about? Is that really what I've just told you that your 14-year-old boy has been soliciting nude pictures from a 12-year-old girl, and you're worried where I got my number. Like, let's be real. And she really wasn't interested in hearing the truth. She was like, no, not my boy. Like, it was very like dismissive, and that was the chance that she had to solve that problem. Like, she could have spoke to him in that moment. She could have got it, but because she didn't want that stigma, that boy is probably going to go out, ask more girls for pictures, do more things, and then eventually maybe even end up doing something that crosses a boundary that will put him on the register or put him in jail or whatever it might be. But she had that chance at that moment to stop that mindset and stop the boy turning into the guy at your base who thought it was okay to share those pictures. Any decent, respectable, gentleman human being would have been like, oh shit, put that down. Amy, this is on there just so you know I haven't looked at it. That's what a real person does, a real man does. There's men out there right now who have got some of the biggest followings in the world who've got rich off of selling girls' pictures. Yet they've got this huge male following who think that they're this guy's God. No, this isn't God. This is a horrendous person, because you're violating women, and it doesn't matter if it is the dragged by the hair into the bushes and raped, or if it is something like what happened to you. It's the same thing.
I've gone most of my life. I mean, I was really young, by the way. I was like 21, I think, at the time when that happened. And I went most of my life thinking all men are bad for multiple reasons. And that was kind of a catalyst that really solidified it for me. And it was only recently that I realized in that moment when I found out that I had pictures on a CD that were rotating, there was both types of men being shown to me. the guy who, the two guys who violated my laptop and me and were selling those CDs, the worst humans on the planet, worst men on the planet. They're not men. The guy who told me, the guy who came to me and said, hey, did you give your pictures to anybody? Like, and then on top of that, tried to help me hold them accountable. He went and got sworn statements from the people that had bought them. He was like trying to push the command to hold this accountable and to get me justice. That only recently did I realize that there are good men out there. Yeah. There really are. And, a good, solid, quality guy won't do that. And so I think the work that you do to help women and to empower women to bring a voice to, life after trauma and things like that, it's so critical because if women are educated in the right way, and men, but specifically as we're talking about girls right now, if they're educated in the right way, they won't even ever get to that point of vulnerability of if a guy is pushing you to share images, as you just shared in the example of your own daughter, if they're educated to know that's not normal to be asked for naked photos of yourself. It's normal to say no. And reshifting that mindset and, helping women to understand that they don't have to they don't have to say yes, they don't have to be a people pleaser, they don't have to feel pressure, that it is okay to create boundaries and to respect yourself and to save, your body and your time and your energy and effort for where you want to give it. I think that's amazing. So thank you for that work.
I think we have to, because we were raised of a generation where it was like, be a good girl, be nice, like, be polite to people, be kind to people. So you're almost always trying to be a people pleaser. Yeah. That's right. And whereas I raise her to be, you say your pleas and thanks, you be respectful, you treat people nice, but you know your boundaries. Like when we spoke about the nude pictures and I asked her to talk me through how it kind of went and she says it very much was a pressure, right? Share your pictures. If you don't, I'm not going to like you anymore. If you don't, I'm going to tell people you've shared them anyway, so you be as well shared. Like the questions, all predatory behavior. Like, where has he learned that? Is it in his peer group? Is it from home? Like, is he being taught that that's not okay? Because there are a lot of good men out there and we need to hear their voices a lot more. There's guys who sit and watch the men who are on display right now and go, this guy's a dick. Like, what's he doing? Like, we need to hear you saying that. Like, we need, like, the power that you guys would have if you could come out, our special ops community, these types of people that know how to treat a woman, that know how to respect a woman, that hold a door open, that can be chivalry's should come back for sure. I fully believe in it. If they would talk more and they would get more vocal about, don't worry about the fact that, some people are more popular, like they're going to go down at some point. So we need those voices. Like the women can stand together and form a pretty solid group, but we need the real men out there who know what's right and wrong.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do need real men. Something in your book also that really just encouraged me so much to keep going down this path of what I'm doing right now with the show is, just trying to create access to information and empowerment and resources and community for veterans in particular that are struggling with transition. I talked to your husband about this quite a bit on our last episode that we just shot, where you're married to Dean Stott, former military. This is just for folks at home that don't quite know the story. Dean Stott is former British Army, amazing character, has gone all over the world, done some of the craziest things that you can ever possibly imagine. Like any cool Rambo show you've seen, he's done it better. And Alana is his wife and mother of his children and runs you guys' businesses that you share together. You've helped him accomplish, again, world records and things of that nature. There's a moment in the book that both of you talk about in his book. I think he corrected me, it was chapter 16 in his book, which is called Relentless. But in your book, you talk about it quite a bit, just this journey of going through being this mother at home, or even just when you were by yourself before you had your baby, where he'd be gone and you'd be holding down the fort. And when he came home and he had his injury and he was getting out of the military, he had like these moments of just anger, and he broke an egg in the kitchen and just had like this snapping moment where he broke down and tears were welling in his eyes because he felt like such a failure, and like he'd lost his man card, and he didn't know what he was going to do next, and to be a provider for you and things like that. I want to talk to you about this because for me, that's like this journey that I've been on to leaving the military, where I feel like I'm full of rage, but that's the case for so many veterans. And when they leave the military and they leave that community, they leave that safety net, there's such a high failure rate where people are unaliving themselves or just struggling. It's almost worse, I think, to be a shell of an existent, be a shell of what you formerly were. And I feel like you were so pivotal in helping Dean find his footing again. And so one, you're freaking cool for that, for being such a supportive partner. But I feel like you have a lot of knowledge to share with the rest of us. And I just want to recap for the audience here that you were in the kitchen with Dean when he broke the egg, and you basically just had this moment where you knew it was time for a change that you had to kind of get through to him. So tell me about that. And then what did you guys do to help him find footing?
Yeah. So when I first met Dean, I was very, very single. Like I had no interest in that. I was a career person. I was buying my third house when I met him. And I didn't know much about the special forces. I knew my dad was in the military. I knew a little bit about army, but I didn't know about his world. But as with everything that I do, I'll learn very quickly as I'm involved in something. So when he was injured, his life went from as you say, the action movie to he couldn't walk. At one point he tried to take a little sprint and he just fell over. Everything was gone. And when I saw the egg breaking, I saw how he broke down over this egg breaking and what it meant for him. I knew at that point that we had to change now. We had to do something. There was something that was going to be big that we were going to have to do. He'd gone from being in this tribe, in this environment where you're told you are the greatest, you're the greatest in the world. How do we now take him from that to normal life? To make himself still feel proud. And we can try it in the real world. We can go and get him a 9-to-5 job, but that's not going to work because that's not who he is.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's forced upon them when they leave. Okay, now you're leaving the military where we've basically taught you how to be this killing machine. Go in the real world and just speak to normal people about normal shitty things that everybody speaks about. And just act normal and forget about the stuff that you've been through. And then if you get angry, we're going to get really pissed off with you. If you go out, we might put you in jail if you start kicking off. There's nothing that's taught to them how to deal with this. And remember, there's still just, a lot of them were boys when they went into the military, and then they've been looked after and told what to do and told this thing. And I'll say it, there's brainwashing goes on within the military communities about why they're doing it and what they're doing and why they should be doing it, where they should be going, who's the bad guy, who's the good guy, all while they're really just a lot of cannon fodder for people that are making a lot of money off of situations that are going on. So I couldn't tell Dean, now go and do this normal job. He had to do something that was still going to give him this buzz. He's into the security world. We get him into some work there, but then we're talking about real world and commercial, and the corporate world is very different to the boys he's been working with up till now. And there's mistrust, and Dean's thinking if somebody says they're going to do something, they're going to do it. And it's like, no, that's not how it works in the real world. So I'm having to teach him all these steps. But the whole time he was still very loyal to the military. It took us quite a while to break that almost like Stockholm syndrome that he had from coming out, thinking that they cared about him, thinking that, and his boys did. His boys are still the most important people in the world to him. But the machine that is the military that's actually powering this and putting them into these situations really don't care. So we had to break that. And then once we got through that cycle and realized that, okay, let's focus on making sure that your guys are going to be okay when they get out and doing more for them. So there was a number of nonprofits we worked with, and it really, going through all these things, the security world, the nonprofits, Dean went on to do the bike ride, he's explained, that was just keeping him busy. We have to, I don't care. I'll earn the money. I'll do any of these things. But him as a person needs to be kept busy. And if I could tell you how many of my friends said, leave him. He's angry. He's aggressive. He's mean. They didn't know the real Dean, and they couldn't understand why I was still there. My very good friends were like, we don't understand, but we'll support you. We'll support you in this. I married him for life, and I was like, I'm in this for life, and I'm going to be there. And I'm, if he's got these issues, we're going to get through them, and we're going to work out how we're going to get through them. And yeah, in the moments of anger, I'm like, you are such an asshole. But the real Dean and the good guy and the one that I love was always there. And I was just never really into like giving up on that. Like it was never something that, and there was times it was like, oh, Alana, like you could go and just live a much more quiet, peaceful life. Like I never had these aspirations of being a housewife or being calm or having a stress-free life. Like my life is stressful and I love it. Like that's what I enjoy. But I committed to him for life, and I wasn't at any point saying, I'm going to give up on you. We're going to do this and we're going to do it together and we're going to work out. And now in 2024, we've actually, and I'm sure he's explained to you the treatments that he's been through and the things that he's done, and we can see that silver lining. And now it's super important that we make sure everybody else can see it too.
Yeah, that's, something that you guys both have talked about to me off camera. And of course, Dean and I just shot, so we talked about it on camera, is we talked about like plant medicine and just some of the work that he's done to become this, old version of himself, which I think it's so powerful for people to understand. Like, it's not like any service member wakes up one day and is just like, I feel like being an asshole today. I feel like being really angry. This is something that it grows and grows and grows and grows, and suddenly it just like takes over your entire being. And I'm not referring to Dean in this moment, but some service members have a hard time leaving the house. They have a hard time driving. They have a hard time going to the grocery store, doing anything that's normal in life, because they're so out of their own body that they can't even function. They can't hold down jobs. There's all these issues that happen. And we talked about how plant medicine is just such an amazing gateway to regaining who you used to be and your old self. And so you do a lot of work in that space.
Yeah, I mean, so we were introduced to only recently. For me, I've always been, if you people described me, it was always calm. That was always the words. It's like, Alana's a super calm person. Like, she's always very chill. But I do have, I don't know if you've ever heard of misophonia. I have a real sensitivity to noise. So if somebody's chewing gum around me or like clicking a pen or bouncing a basketball or something like that, it can send me into a rage. But my rage comes internally, and I won't, even having a baby, I didn't make a noise. Having 3 babies, I made no sound during it. It comes inside me, and but I've learned that that's part of the PTS around sexual assault, that you can grow these things, that you're almost just super hypersensitive to noises and things that, if somebody comes into my room and I'm asleep, and I can feel it immediately. Like, I can feel a person's presence immediately.
It's survival.
Completely. And they're on the same thing. Like, whether it's from their childhood trauma, which I believe is like 75% of PTS soldiers it's from childhood rather than the actual military, but that doesn't help what they've gone through in the military. And most of them are then stuck on like whatever antidepressants or whatever pharmaceuticals that are given. And when I moved to America, to come to America, you've got to do a lot of tests and you've got to do a lot of things, and we had our medical exam. And the doctor came with a list of drugs that me and the kids and Dean needed. And I was like, we don't take any pharmaceuticals. It's nothing but they were very, very keen to give us all something for something or other. I'm like, why? What? Like, one of them was a cholesterol thing. I was like, why not suggest diet or exercise or any of these things? But it was a shock to me seeing on the commercials on TV, constant pharmaceutical ads, constant. And when it came to plant medicine, I've known a lot about it, but as much detail before I spoke to Amber and Marcus and Kelsey and Jessie from Heroic Hearts, and really learned what benefits there were to plant medicine. I knew slightly, but not to the full extent. So to see, special ops guys going through Ibogaine and going through one door and coming out another door like completely different and lighter and freer and, unshackled from the burdens of these pains from their past. And the same with sexual assault survivors, and even that, like I was talking about this the other day, it doesn't have to be trauma. You could have been through absolutely no trauma in your life, but the medicine just helps open you up a little bit more to what the world is and to what life is. And I would take a stab at most people who are really committed to a medicine journey that isn't pharmaceuticals, it's more plant-based. They don't have a desire to hate or to hurt or to cause harm or to cause wars, because it just brings you a peace in your life that you don't want to be doing those types of things, and you can see things for how they really are. But there's a certain group of people that like to kind of stigmatize the plant medicine world as like like kooky and out there and hippie and everything. I know so many people who have been through the treatment, prominent business people, like very like
Celebrities,
and every one of them does amazing. Yes, there is people that can abuse it for sure, like anything else. Like it can be abused and it can be used in the wrong way, or it can be integrated the wrong way afterwards, or there's things that, not following the correct guidelines. But if you're following the guidelines for places like Heroic Hearts, who provide treatment to veterans, they give a really strong plan of coaching, of diet, of during the process, and then the aftermath and everything you go through. Like if you're sticking to this, it's going to help in some sort of way. So it's really interesting to me. And I was talking to someone about having a baby the other day, and she was like telling me that she was doing the ayahuasca during labor, and I went, oh wow, that's
next level.
That's next level. But then I thought, actually, when I had a baby in hospital in America, I got given a menu of
Pitocin,
fentanyl, morphine, Pitocin, like all these things that I would stick a needle in my back, like all these kind of things. But we're saying that a plant is wrong to take, and even in my mind, I went, oh, like. And then I thought about it and I thought, no, why not? Like, it's a beautiful experience, and having a baby and being able to experience that, even just in a slight microdose, would be absolutely amazing. Then not having all that other drugs that's telling us, oh, you're in pain, we need to give you this drug. The pain is there to help you through the process of childbirth. So why are we like fighting against it and not going back to it? It's the same thing of us lying on our back with our legs open to have a baby. Like that was invented by men as well. That's not the position we're meant to be in, to have a baby, but we've done it for years and we just settle for that. But let's kind of fight against that now and say, actually, no, we've done that for years and maybe it's not working that well. So let's just go back to how our ancestors done it and how many tribes still do it now. And ignore the kind of commercial giant that wants to get rich off of you being sick. Because let's face it, pharmaceutical companies don't want you well.
Yeah. We're going to have, I think we're going to have like multiple episodes together because we have so much to talk about. I mean, like just a couple examples, like you did some work with kids in the foster care system. I was in the foster care system. And so there's a story you share in your book where you talk about a young boy in particular. I think he was like 15 and he lied about his age to get a job. I did the same thing. And I was really lucky in the sense that when they found out how old I really was, they just moved me to a different area where I was still within the law. But so I got lucky because I've been on my own since I was a mid-teenager and fully like paying my own bills. It's one of the reasons why I joined the military at 17. And that story had me just sobbing because I felt so bad for that kid that they denied his ability to continue to care for himself. And so I want to unpack that in a different episode, but, I also want to go deeper into, sexual trauma and all of that, given that we have limited time for these hour-long episodes. In particular, is the premise of the show is it's got a military undertone. And so I think you have such a unique perspective on being a military spouse and the work that you've done with just helping to transition people and to this day, helping to help people find their footing. Is there any tips that you would recommend to service members that are leaving to help them reintegrate to their families a little bit more appropriately?
I mean, communication is everything, but that's not easy for me to say. It's easy for me to say. It's not always easy to do it, but start small, just having a little conversation, writing letters, telling people how you feel in both ways. And I think you both have to understand each other. Like Dean and I wouldn't talk. And both of us were actually feeling the same thing. We just weren't communicating it in the right way. And when we actually started communicating and realizing this is working, we need to talk more. We need to, and I mean talk. I don't mean shout or get into an argument, because as soon as the voice is raised, nobody's listening. Nobody's hearing anything. Work on the 75-25 rule. So listen and speak 25. Listen 75. And communicate with your partner and your kids as well. Like so many kids are overlooked, because they've been watching dad coming and going over the years, the arguments. I talk about it in the book, the transition period of he goes away you live that single mom life for a while, and then you're getting used to like preparing for him coming home, then he's coming home, and now you've got to live this new life, and it's just this constant circle. Well, the kids are in that circle all the time too. Anytime you're arguing, anytime you're upset, they're seeing all these things. So it's important to take time to actually sit down, and it seems a bit cheesy, but sit down and play a board game. So stuff without electronics, put the electronics away, like fully put it away. And have there's scroll on your social media, do your thing, but have a place where you put the phone that's away so that the kids know that they've got your attention. Each other knows that you've got your attention. Have those date nights, have those moments that's just the two of you, and block out those distractions. But communication's everything.
Wow. You know what's so crazy about this? If you guys have seen my episode with Dean Stott, her husband, he had the same thing. So communication is everything. They actually talk about it in their books too. I think, again, his chapter 16, I can't remember the chapter for you, but it was basically death or divorce. How you guys had this moment where you sat down together in the kitchen, drank 2 bottles of wine. That's my kind of night. We should do that. We should have like a 2 bottle.
It wasn't wine, it was port, which was even
port.
worse.
Okay. But we need to do that, me and you. I feel like we would have so much fun in our conversations. But that moment for you guys sitting down, connecting together, having like true heart-to-heart, radical honesty conversations with one another, and where you guys felt that maybe you were on different paths. You were actually just trying to please one another. Yeah. And that was just so important, I think, for me to read, because the lesson of just being honest in your communication, having that moment where you pause life, everything gets set down for a moment and you're just connecting with your loved one. It's so critical to do that, so you can be on the same page. And since then, you guys have not only just like leaned in closer together, you've built businesses together, you've raised millions of pounds together and dollars at this point for charities all over the world, accomplished world records, did work on multiple TV shows, launched a business, you name it. You guys are just the most incredible power couple. So you're amazing. I love talking to you. We definitely have to get more time together.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
Just on the usuals, like Alana Stott is pretty much across everything. So Instagram, Twitter, website, alanastott.com's got pretty much everything you need to know. Not everything. Obviously, I still keep a lot hidden.
Put some stuff in the back pocket. Well, I'm going to try to get that out of you next time we talk. And just to recap on the books, guys. So she also has children's books, Molly's Adventures.
Yeah, so there's Me and My Friends Play, Live Your Own Way, and my favourite's Who to Help Today. So that's my 3 kids' books. But yeah, I need to get writing again because Tommy is complaining that Molly's got a book named after her. He doesn't. So he wants Tommy's Travels next. So that'll be my next. When I can get a minute to write some kids' books, I'll do it.
Yeah, do that. Because, I mean, they're really, really cute. I thumbed through earlier. But if you've got kids, go get her children's books. Again, She Who Dares, Alana Stott. Go grab her book. And then if you are at all interested in raising money, you're in the corporate space, or you just want to help a charity out, how to raise money, how to ask for money. She is a true expert when it comes to that. And we also have to chat about Prince Harry next time too, because you got to go to the royal wedding, which I'm obsessed over. So we'll get to that next time. But
well done.
Yeah.
I can't wait to read your book when
I write it one day. I got to do the Ibogaine and the ayahuasca first, and then I'll get to writing. Take the pen
with you when you're in your
I should. Yeah. That's a great idea. Well, hopefully I'll be able to unpack some of that and get it into a book one day. That's a good idea. It's not bad at all. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thanks for coming on the show. And we'll catch you next time on the next episode of The Amy Is Show.